Hello world, and welcome to the Pop Culture Patter podcast. As always, I'm your host, Callum Brown, and this week's guest is owner of Finnieston Clothing Ross Geddes. Ross and I speak in depth about his journey with mental health, along with a little bit about his brand Finnieston Clothing. As always, this podcast was recorded with my good friends at the Podcast Studio Glasgow, the East End of Glasgow's digital creative hub, and the only podcast studio in Scotland that offers 18 years of experience in the medium and is ran by a pioneer in British podcasting. To find out more information relating to the wide range of services offered or to book a session, please visit www.podcaststudioglasgow.com. Before we get into this episode, here's a quick word from our sponsor.
This podcast is brought to you by Brown & Co Properties, an award-winning family-run estate agency based in Whitburn, West Lothian. With a property mark protected service for a fixed fee, we are your go-to agent for expert property sales advice in the area. Get on the go with Brown & Co.
Ross, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me on.
First of all, how are you?
I'm good, mate, yeah. Very good today, actually. Yeah, no, feeling good. Got what's happening in life at the moment? Spring, summer, supposedly. It's pretty cold out there, so I launched a whole big bunch of shorts and t-shirts last week, and it's like 5 degrees, so that's fun. And got a big bunch of kind of new stock arriving over the next kind of few weeks as well. So quite a busy time for me from the point of view of a lot of stuff to organise, photo shoots, and then this is, as a growing business, I need to order more than I did last year. Yeah. So you've got all this stuff turning up. You've got twice as much as you had last year. And then you've got that pressure of doing photo shoots for that product. And then you've got to chuck a whole load of money out online. It's like putting a coupon on. Do you know what I mean? Where you're literally just like, right, okay, so...
And hope that the Scottish weather works.
Yeah. When it comes to retail though, especially if you've got a shop outside, it's you're very, very dependent on the weather, where it's if it's wet, windy and horrible, people aren't out and about on, for example, a Tuesday. So you kind of need a bit of mixed weather, nice and bad, really. If it's too nice, nobody wants to go to the shops either.
That's true.
So, but yeah, just that would work. My daughter's just started nursery.
Oh wow!
So she's been going to that. It was an interesting first couple of weeks where it was you're dropping her off, and it's literally just you fucking abandoned me at the gates like that, and you're literally just ah shit, just keep walking to the point where you can't hear the screams at the gate. Do you know what I mean? Where la 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 la. So that's been a learning curve for both of us, I would say, in a way, as a family, where it's literally just but now she's at that stage now where she's jumping out the pram, heading into the nursery, waving goodbye and stuff like that, and you're like, thank God for that, man, because it's
quite heartbreaking.
It is a little bit, definitely, because she doesn't know what's going on.
That's true.
Do you know what I mean? It's literally, and then the thing is as well, when you're at the nursery, it's literally just they don't say all right, don't say goodbye to her. Literally, what you've got to do is take her in, and hopefully she gets distracted by something, and then literally just walk out. Do you know what I mean? So she turns round and it's literally just no. So
it's like that scene in a movie where somebody just disappears after they're there and then they're not, like Batman.
She's so that was a horrible kind of integration, do you know what I mean, from that point of view, but now she's doing great. So but you know what I mean, it's just at this moment in time, it's just juggling your work life and family life and just and your personal life as well, do you know what I mean, where certainly being a dad and running a business and you've got to do your family stuff as well, but it's one thing that I've learned over the last couple of years is you really need to try and learn to take space for yourself as well. Do you know what I mean? Because
absolutely.
if you're running on empty and you're not taking time for yourself, your relationship with your family suffers, your business suffers and stuff like that as well, and I think unfortunately our kind of generation, or particularly if I look at my mum and dad, they can't switch off. Do you know what I mean? Where it's literally just they'll sit at the end of a day off and brag about how much they've done in a day. Do you know what I mean? Where like they can't just sit and do nothing. So we've not really had anybody to learn off. Like, they're like the people, the busybodies that just like to do stuff all the time. Where I'm trying to learn better ways to really just switch off and not do a lot, really, like, and really take space for myself and clear out the mind a little bit as well. So,
and what do you do for that?
One thing I've learned over the last couple of years, which has been great for me, is breath work.
Oh, okay.
Which is you're probably like a famous breathwork person, like Wim Hof.
Yes,
you know.
Yeah.
And that's like something for me, like, you know, what I've realised is that I struggle to regulate my nervous system. And so, for example, what will happen is, you know, for example, if you wake up stressed and then you chuck a wee coffee on top of that, and then, you know, you're up at 6 o'clock in the morning with your daughter, you know, double espresso, and then you're having another double espresso. Like, see, by the time you can get to work at 10 o'clock, like, or do you know what I mean? You're already like a mess. Yeah. So by doing breath work for me has been great, because it's like I've kind of almost learned to play my kind of central nervous system like a musical instrument, almost that way. I can feel it kind of going up, and then I can bring myself down as well just by doing these kind of breathing techniques, where different kinds of breathing techniques where, you know, you're breathing in and out quite quickly, you breathe out, and then by the time you've done all that breathing and you breathe out and you hold your breath maybe for a minute or 2 minutes, you're in this extreme state of kind of relaxation. And after it, it's literally just like, I just feel like I've been able to take myself down like a few octaves, where beforehand, and you know, a year or so ago, beforehand in life, before I didn't even know these things existed, you were kind of literally just like, I just need to have a few cans. Do you know what I mean?
That's a Scottish thing, isn't it?
That's it, mate. Do you know what I mean? Where it was literally just like, I used to just try and drink through my stress and anxiety, where that was something that I did a lot of, really. Wasn't like, you know, with alcohol, with me, it was never like a getting up in the morning and having a gin kind of thing. It was kind of, you know, what I was noticing with my stress through work and stuff like that, it was like trying to consume a large amount of alcohol in a small amount of time, where you're trying to calm yourself down. So that's where, for me, like, you know, I think it was like August last year, I was just like, right, okay, I'm going to take a year off the drink. Right. Which for me, up until now I'm at a stage where I'm literally just like, I don't really miss it, you know, where I've really, really at that stage now where I probably will drink again, you know, I'm interested to see what happens, you know, or how I react to it. But my relationship with it has completely changed, where I think if I was to go on a stag do or a wedding or something like that, and is to have those kind of, you know, iconic, you know, Christmas Day, those iconic drinks, you know, but, you know, I think for me, going on those days of, you know, coming home from work stressed on a Friday and try to sink 6 cans on a Friday night, do you know what I mean? Where, and it's like, it's not enough to give you a hangover, but just enough just to just set you off the next day in a bad way, where your anxiety is worse than it was the day before, and then you're in this constant cycle of basically just trying to you know, catch up with yourself.
I'm the exact same. I can't do a hangover at all. It lasts for 2 weeks, because it lasts in my mind for 2 weeks. So you have a drink and you're just like fucked from for the next couple of weeks, basically. It's funny that you mentioned with the coffee. I feel like if anybody wants to experience anxiety, just drink a shitload of coffee, because anxiety is like that times 10, but pairing anxiety with a lot of coffee is even worse.
Well, that's something I've quit now, is coffee as well. So no coffee and no drink, and that's one of the things as well I've learned, well, like the coffee and stuff like that, is you can wake yourself up normally, you know, and that's where, like, I think, like, I probably relate coffee to like fags in a way, because I used to smoke as well, where if you've never smoked before, you don't miss it. With coffee as well, if you don't drink coffee, you don't miss it. It's like it's like a depletion that you wake up. You probably wake up every day with this kind of, you know, like depletion in caffeine, where your body's craving it and it's needing it. So essentially it's just kind of bringing you back to that normal level of not feeling tired. And since then, since stop with the coffee and the drink, it's literally just like my mental, that for me, I would say, like, you know, with my mental health and stuff like that, has probably been the biggest, a huge improvement. Do you know what I mean? That kind of kickstart that really kind of helped things as well. So
and have you substituted it with anything, or just gone completely cold turkey?
just like I still love coffee. Do you know what I mean? So I'll still have decaf. Like I'll have a decaf and stuff like that as well, because it's almost like that kind of nice morning ritual. Do you know what I mean? Where you get the smell. And it's like, and like don't get me wrong, like there's times where I've been sitting there going like that, just have a coffee, it doesn't really matter. Or like I played football the other week and I was knackered and I had a Red Bull before it, so it's like I've had caffeine, do you know what I mean? I just, and that's where for me it's literally just like I just don't want to get back. I have quite an addictive personality, right? So it's literally just like if I have one coffee one morning, it's literally just like I know it'll snowball, so it will. So and yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the drink as well, because it's certainly I don't miss it now at all. Even going on nights out and stuff like that as well, where I think it's kind of, I think once you start to do a bit of work on yourself and you kind of go, why is it I need to have a drink to calm myself down in social situations? Do you know what I mean? Why is it I need to have a drink around certain people to have a good time and stuff like that as well? And once you start to really work out why that is, you kind of don't see the point anymore.
Yeah.
Do you know where?
And it's a strange culture that we're in, that we rely so heavily on alcohol to have a good time. Yeah. And see, when you're not drinking, you're the weird one.
Oh, what did you do?
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
I know.
It's, but I think that's changing a lot now, though. I think a lot of people are kind of now waking up to a bit more of a wellness revolution, where, I think, and even I think, well, I'm 37. I think you speak to a lot of younger kids. I think there's a lot of younger kids out there that just don't drink now. Yeah. There's not as big a culture. Like when we were growing up, there was this huge binge drinking culture. Do you know what I mean? When I was, when you were like 18, 19 years old, walking around a nightclub with
I was
like
12 when I was started
VKs
drinking.
in your hands, like, do you know what I mean? Like, 2 tropical, a couple of apple and some blue ones. Like, you get to your bed at like 3 o'clock in the morning and you're rattling like a second-hand fridge. Do you know what I mean? Where you're just, where that's that, but that's what you did for, like, I think, when you're 18 years old, you did that for confidence. Do you know what I mean? And you did that to be able to go up and talk to people and stuff like that, because you needed that. But now you're kind of at that age where I'm literally just like, I'm a 37-year-old man. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you need drink to go up and have a conversation with somebody, you need to look at that. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? If you need alcohol to have a good time, you need to look at that. Do you know? So yeah.
I stopped getting like the buzz of drinking by the age of like 21. So I think like, if you quit at 21, you're not missing anything, because you don't need it after that point.
No, I know. I don't want to give alcohol a bad rap. Do you know what I mean? It is like and everything in moderation's fine, but unfortunately for me, I was always a man of extremes, where I was either like trying to be super fit, or either was a complete bomb scare. Like it was one or the other. So
this is almost like having a conversation with myself. So the thing is, this Fight Club
I don't think that's where it's just like so many guys are the same though. Do you know? And that's where it's like it's just just trying to look at these situations and try and have a look inside and work out why the things are happening the way they are. But it's that to have that realization, it takes a lot, you know. Or what usually happens is it means you basically just meeting like a low. Yeah. That's unfortunately what happens with a lot of people, is that basically they get to that point where their feet touch the bottom and they go, oh shit, there's actually something wrong here. Where maybe a lot of people float around the bottom for quite a very, very long time and not really realise it. Yeah. Because as we were talking about, I think it's so easy when it comes to alcohol and drugs and stuff like that to always compare yourself to somebody that's worse. Yeah. You can always sit there and justify it to yourself in some way, where I'm not as bad as them. Yeah. Or I'm not as bad as them. Do you know what I mean? So it's always easy to do that. Yeah, and it's funny that you were saying that like you go to the extreme with stuff, and for me I'm quite similar, and like I'd never just have a drink casually. Like I just have one or two. I would never be able to do it. It would always be to get on it. Yeah. Because it would just help numb a lot of stuff. But in a way, the more you drink, the more the shit comes out in your head. Yeah. And you make that change. And there's been a couple of times in my life that people have recorded me at my worst under drink, and I've looked back at it and just been like, it's like a demon. You know what I mean? It's not me. Yeah.
And that's when you're like, right, I'm going to just stop now, because it's just I can't have that happen. And mental health and drink just don't go together.
No, definitely not.
And you and I have that mutual mental health, and that's kind of where we started talking when you'd posted a video on your social media about your struggles, and I was just like, right, I need to reach out to this guy. And obviously, you know, Mark, who runs the studio, Mark and Cam, and they were kind of saying, anyway, why don't you get Ross on? So it just all worked out, and I reached out to say, oh, would you be up for coming on for a chat? So yeah, that was a very brave thing to do. You've been creating a brand with Finnieston Clothing. We've not touched upon what you do at all. But
I've got my own clothing brand, by the way. That's what I do. So, but it's just about giving me a nervous breakdown. So, no, I've got my own clothing brand, Finnieston Clothing. So, I've got a shop in Byres Road and a website. So, and that started probably about, it was about properly, I would say, we launched it in 2018, and then it was it kind of went into my mum and dad have got a few clothing stores in CCW Clothing, so it started off as an own brand for them, and then we kind of went, right, okay, is this going to be an own brand or is it going to be a brand? So, and we basically just have been trying to get a brand off the ground really ever since then, but we were just completely naive to the point of view of that you can't, like, it's very hard to, it's very, I'd say hard, that's hard, but it's very, very expensive to try and get a clothing brand off the ground. And there's one thing that I've always been very good at since the beginning of Finnieston is that I've always tried to do things at a very high quality. So that's where for me it's literally just like that automatically puts you in a price bracket. So when you're in that price bracket, you then have to then be able to back up that product with fantastic marketing and fantastic photography, which I never really did that well, if you're being honest. Like, product wise, I've always been pretty good, but you know, my kind of really naivety came into things was thinking that I could just jump around and take pictures of it, and that, you know, and not invest as much in marketing, I think. So it's been, and then, you know, we got to that point where we kind of rebranded and made it just a menswear brand, and, you know, I really wanted to focus on the industrial heritage in Glasgow. And then we launched Finnieston again in 2020, which was like the year of COVID. And then, so we were supposed to have a shop open. Everything was supposed to arrive, and basically we got put into lockdown. All my factories made all my clothing. And basically went into lockdown. So they're literally just like, we're ready to ship this to you. And I'm like, I can't even fucking leave my flat. Like, what the fuck do you want me to do? You know? So it locked in a flat, you know, like, and
got
obviously
newborn as well.
What? Well, that came the year after.
Oh, did it?
Yeah. Pile that on top of that. So it was like, honestly, like 2020 was like, you know, the lockdowns, and we eventually got the shop open 12 days before Christmas in 2020, right? And then got shut for 4 months.
Fuck.
Do you know what I mean? So, and then during that 4 months lockdown, both my grands died, and then my daughter was born. So it was literally just like stress, grand died, daughter born, grand died, and then opened the shop back up in kind of May with, you know, spring, summer, but obviously I still have my winter stuff in the shop. And I hadn't ordered any spring, summer stuff because I didn't know what was going on. There was no, I was not going to be so stupid to go and order a whole bunch of stuff, and I wasn't sure. So there was a real hard time with business as well, and, you know, that automatic feeling that you've done something extremely wrong. So that's that. During that period there, I would say that's when my alcohol kind of started to snowball, where I wasn't dealing with stress correctly. And it was that's where, like, I just started to snowball a little bit, and then that eventually led to me having like a couple of kind of relatively small breakdowns almost, do you know what I mean, where it was but I'm really lucky to have a really supportive partner who is she comes from like a yoga kind of holistic background,
right?
So for me, that was like, you know, she was literally just like, you know, we started to do meditation in the flat and stuff like that, try and quiet my mind down. And she's been kind of, it did reach a point where it was just that bad, where I was literally just like, I was either going to go to the doctor with my anxiety. I was either going to go to the doctors and get medicated, or I was just like, right, okay, I'm going to try and go down the kind of holistic route as well. I've had my family, my mum in particular, she's had mental health issues before and had, you know, medication, and she was literally just like, I'm not saying like medicating yourself's wrong or anything like that. Everybody's got different things that works for different people. So I just felt in my heart that I wanted to go down that kind of holistic route really and try and work out, you know, what's going on with myself really, you know, because ever since I launched Finnieston in 2018, I'd been, you know, quite hadn't been dealing with stress well, and that's when I knew I'd been starting to depend quite a lot on alcohol and not sleeping great, and I think I was 28 and I got diagnosed with gout.
Too much red wine?
Mate, too much Buckfast. That was the problem, mate. Buckfast and pizza. Yeah, just wasn't dealing with situations correctly, you know. And, you know, I would be, you know, not too bad during the week, but, you know, I was the kind of person that could go out on a Friday night and not come home until the Sunday. You know, like, you know, stay out all weekend, where it was just pure escapism.
And when you've got a partner as well.
I didn't have a partner then.
At that point,
she wouldn't have put up with that shit.
Aye, I was about to say, that's dodgy behaviour when you've got a partner, but...
No. And the thing is, it wasn't even like I was away, you know, going away like, you know, like with women or anything like that. It was drinking drugs, you know, sitting in somebody's flat all weekend and literally just like, you know, the blinds closed and just escaping, mate, you know. So but it's weird though, like I've always had that side of me, but then there's the other side of me as well, where, you know, I could get to Tuesday and just eat perfectly, exercise, play football and stuff like that as well, where that's kind of kept me on that an even keel really, where I've always had that to balance me out. So it was where it was just like go to the gym, play football, but then by Friday you're like feeling better again and you're literally just like let's go again.
Yeah, I know.
So but it's and
was there a defining moment where you realised that your alcohol, you were self-medicating?
Yeah, it was that year that, you know, obviously with my grands, my daughter being born, it got to Christmas time and we were super busy in the shops, and due to like a really weird COVID related incident, basically what ended up happening was, like, first Christmas I should have been spending with my daughter, my partner ended up having to spend it with her mum and dad, self-isolating because of COVID, because they were all either had it or were within close contact. This was when everybody was like properly following the rules.
Yeah.
So then it got to Christmas Eve and I'm working in the shop, and one of the wee guys, Joe, who was one of our kind of like part-timers, he was going out a lot and I'm like, please mate, just don't fuck this up, right? So Christmas Eve, he comes into the shop and basically is working, and he says, oh, my friends just messaged me to say that, you know, who I was out with last night's got COVID. And then I was actually just like, right, you need to go home. He went home, messaged me saying, I've got COVID. And then literally I was just like, how did he get into work today? Then all the guys that work in the shop, we all came in the car together, and I was actually just like, right. And I'm sitting like watching Ross, who works in the shop, speak to customers. I was like, right, you need to go home. So it's Christmas Eve in the shop myself. Like, I'm the busiest days of the year.
Yeah.
Like, so then I managed to get things wrapped up. So I was actually, by this point, I was just going to drive through to my mum and dad's and have like Christmas with them. And then woke up Christmas morning and my dad's sitting at the table in the morning and giving it. And you were literally just like, you all right? And he was literally just like, yeah, I've just got the cold. And I was like, have you tested? And he was literally just like, nah. And I was just like, why? He was like, because I'm careful. And I was just like, you're an arsehole. I'm a fucking dick. Takes a test, he's got COVID. And I was literally just like, I'm not hanging about here. But for me in that moment in time, there was this switch in my head where I was literally just like, weirdly excited about being able to take a load of drink from my mum and dad's house and go and drink myself on Christmas Day. So I went home to my flat on Christmas Day and spent Christmas Day myself, My mum gave me some like food and stuff like that, like, but I literally drank my flat dry to the point where like I woke up on Boxing Day on like my living room floor, you know. So like for me that was like a major kind of like wake up moment where I was literally just like, this isn't good. Do you know what I mean? The fact that I was actually, my Christmas had been completely ruined and I wasn't that bothered.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Where I think by that point I was just a bit numb to everything, and I started to notice it when my second gran had died, where I was literally just like at the funeral and I'm like, I don't really feel a lot. Right. Do you know what I mean? Where I was kind of just at that stage where I think my nervous system had just kind of
just numb.
Do you know? So I was just numb to a lot of stuff, and that's when I went like that. Right, okay, I'm going to try and sort myself out and start to look at maybe some alternative kind of therapies and stuff like that. So, and that's where my partner was actually just like, maybe you should try Cambo.
Okay.
So Cambo it's either the secretion or it comes from the glands of an Amazonian frog.
Okay.
Right. So, and this is legal.
Yeah. Just to confirm.
Some of the stuff I might talk might not be, but so you basically go into there's quite a few people in Glasgow that do it, and basically what it does is you go in there, you drink maybe a couple of litres of water, and you burn 3 holes in your arm, and then they basically put the secretion from the frog on the dots, and basically what happens is you get this incredible, it's not a pleasant like buzz through your entire body where it feels like your entire body's kind of vibrating, and what happens is you bring up all that water with a whole lot of other stuff. I've never smelled anything like this. Like, honestly.
Wow.
Demons, probably. Like, do you know? And what that does is it's fantastic for your body in a physical sense because it clears out your kidneys and it clears out your liver as well.
Okay.
The people treat it for PTSD as well, anxiety, depression and stuff like that as well. And it's basically, it's what people in the Amazon use to fight off illnesses.
Right.
So that's what they use. It's been proven to be very good for cancers.
Okay.
And what will happen as well is, like, you know, for whenever people go hunting as well, people get a little bit of it before they go hunting because it's supposed to be very good for that as well. Where, and I felt absolutely amazing after that, you know, and I think it might have been, you know, a good clear out. This is where you start to realise that, you know, from a physical point of view, that, you know, clearing out your kidneys and your liver, like, you know, a lot of actually mental health can be, you know, it's physical stuff. Yep. It's stuff that you're putting in your body, you know. You're creating too much cortisol like within your body, and it's creating stress, and basically what this does is it just gives you a really good clean out, and it's very, very good for your immune system as well.
Right, okay.
But the thing was with that is, like, you know, and this is where, you know, you start to learn is that you can't just go back to being what you were before that, and that's what I did. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I feel all right now, and then still drinking a bit, still eating crap and stuff like that, and basically what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up sliding back down again. So ended up you know, not in a bad way, but just like I could just feel my anxiety creaking back again, and, you know, starting to use alcohol again to kind of calm myself down, you know, a couple of times at weddings and stuff like that, where you were that guy that had maybe taken it too far. Do you know what I mean? Where you wake up the next day and everybody's like, fucking hell, I should have seen you last night, and you're literally just like, you know, that kind of horrible fear.
Yeah.
You're literally just like that kind of real kind of shame. You felt a lot of shame. So that's when it was that time where I was literally just like, right, okay, I'm going to stop drinking for a year. Made that decision.
And did you do the thing again?
What, Cambo again? I'd done it again,
Right.
I did do it. I've done it a couple of times, and there's people that, you know, you don't have to have necessarily severe mental health issues to do it. It's just a fantastic way to cleanse your body. But I gave up the drink. But see, when I gave up, after like the first kind of couple of weeks after stopping drinking, what I noticed was that I play a lot of football, was that my knees gave in. Right. And that I got quite ill.
Okay.
And I was literally just like, what the hell is going on? Like, you know, and it basically would have been withdrawals.
Okay.
And I had, you know, that's when you think like, oh, fuck, I wasn't that bad. And then you were literally just like, you must have been.
Yeah.
You know,
Jesus.
where you don't really realise that, you know, and that's the thing is as well, it's just like, you know, I was maybe drinking maybe a few nights a week, you know. But lots of people look at that and go, that's normal, you know. So, and that's where kind of, stopped drinking. And then I ended up, my partner ended up putting me in touch with a men's retreat.
Yes, I saw you mentioned the retreat.
Yeah. So it's a guy run by David Miller. It's called Mantra Holistic Support. And that's where basically I was super doubtful and dubious about that. Like, it was my partner that was obviously kind of like trying to lightly push me towards it, like, please do something. So so eventually, like, his weekends aren't cheap, you know, so it was like £600 or something like that.
Yeah.
Quite a big investment. And but I turned up to this weekend and there was, 25 other people there, and wow, I was really, really, like, I'd probably say it's one of those kind of kinks in your life, you know, where it just takes you in another way, like in a good way.
Yeah.
You know, where over the course of the weekend, the kind of weekend's based on a famous book which is called Warrior, King, Lover, Magician, I think it's called, which is basically, and it goes into the main 4 male archetypes.
Right.
So basically, you know, the light sides of the king, you know, like basically, you know, like the good sides and basically the bad sides, and basically how men all have these kind of shadow sides and light sides of their personality, you know. So of the, you know, the lover, there's the, as you know, you may have explained, that addicted lover.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Where chasing oblivion, you know, all that kind of stuff. And it really, really, you kind of get to, what it was amazing was you kind of get to that age of 37 or 36 it was, and you're like, fuck, I'm actually a bit of a dick.
Yeah.
Which most men, you know, it really, really hammers out that ego. Aye. And it really looks at the side that weekend, really, you know, because how it would work would be, you know, on the Saturday morning, what happened is you had ice baths first thing in the morning, right? So you did that. And then this was my first kind of step into breath work. Okay. You know, and this was basically holotropic breath work. So basically what happens is, you know, there's 20 guys sitting on the floor of this tent, right? And there's this guy who's this breathwork magician, man, like just this guy, and basically he plays music while you're basically going into this kind of holotropic breathwork, which is big, kind of deep, like almost kind of hyperventilating. So, and what happens when you start to do that at quite a fast pace is that basically what happened for me, I could only describe it as like an exorcism, which was basically like all this just emotion and stress just all came out.
That's insane.
Honestly, I was screaming, but so was the other. What made it so comforting is you could just hear the other 20 men in the same tent doing the same, where everybody was just letting this out, you know. And the guy, during the breathwork sessions, once you're thinking as clear as you've ever felt, you know, he starts to do inner child work with you, where he takes you back. And like, it was so incredible because you're sitting breathing away and he's sitting saying to you, I want you to imagine a place when you were, you know, a wee boy. And all of a sudden I could just see it crystal clear, like me in my mum and dad's kitchen when I was like 8 years old.
Right.
And you were able to see yourself. Like, you know, like, which is extremely emotional, you know, to see that kind of stuff. And, you know, you're going back and you're talking to that wee boy, and then he takes you to a point in your life where you are at your lowest, you know, I talk about that Christmas time. Jesus. And you're speaking to yourself then. Do you know what I mean? And you're doing this kind of journey through yourself, and really it's that healing journey through a breathwork session, right? So... And then, you know what I mean, it just plays like lovely, relaxing music, it like really hearts, you know, beautiful music. And then you're just sitting there bawling your eyes out, you know. And then obviously that's to bring your guard down and let that all out. So then that's when the rest of the weekend it's workshops and you're talking about other men, about stuff that you've done wrong, stuff that you've done right, you know. And what it is it's actually just having other people listen to you. You know, you talking about all your stuff and how we are all very similar as men, you know. We all have a very similar problems and issues. And a lot of the problems and the issues, I think, with men at our age, of any age, I think actually, is that basically, this is what this book kind of goes into, is that basically, there's such a thing as boy psychology and man psychology, right? Okay. And, 1,000 years ago, or not even that, like 100 years ago, men would have these initiations as boys that would take them from that kind of boy into man, and that basically we don't have that in society anymore. We don't. Majority of men these days are like little boys that are just running around in men's bodies.
Yeah, do you know what? As you were saying that, I was just like, that's exactly what I was doing. Just a wee boy trying to pretend to be a grown up.
Yeah. If you look at Donald Trump, what's he? He's a wee boy running around in a man's body. Unfortunately, most of these men are actually running the fucking world.
Yeah.
That's the problem, and that basically there's never this step into manhood, and for me, I would say that weekend was that for me.
Yeah.
Where that was that real ownership, taking ownership of everything you've done, and speaking to other people about it, and like that was a huge weekend. And people sit there and go, 600 quid, and you're like, you can't put a price on that,
No. And that's again what, when you kind of parallel it to clothing, some people will be like, I'm not paying £300 for a jacket, you know what I mean? But you're getting great quality in that. Whereas £600, you're spending on yourself, it's your own development. You could spend. I would rather get in debt spending money on myself for my development rather than get in debt. What I've done is get in debt by buying clothes. But that sounds like the kind of experience you hear about on the telly, and you're just like, wow.
Yeah.
And you've made me, I was sitting listening to you and I was like, I'm going to book this course.
Mate, honestly, and that's where the problem is up until now is there's so much stigma around this kind of work where, people think that it's maybe a bit weird or stuff like that, right? And that's where it's just like, one thing that I've learned through this journey is that see if it's weird, it's probably good for you. Yeah.
And let me tell you something, yesterday we had a mentalist and like a hypnotherapist come in, and there was two guys doing a podcast, and at the end of the podcast they were getting hypnotized by this hypnotist. And watching that happen in front of your eyes, somebody controlling your mind like that, was powerful. It was the wildest shit. I couldn't stop laughing. It was so funny. And when the episode goes out, I can't wait to check it out, but he literally just put a guy on the floor out cold and was like controlling him. But he could also, like, just the next time he shook his hands, he'd be like, right, you're awake, and he'd awake. But then 2 seconds later, he'd be like, right, that's you closed down. So your mind is a weird weapon in a way. And it's like, if we feed it with the likes of booze and junk food and all this kind of stuff that we all do, of course you're going to feel like shit. Whereas if you actually start to learn what your brain can do and open up your mind, you can achieve anything. And that goes for mental health or I
think as a society, I don't think we really know what makes us happy. And that's the thing, is literally just like, I think like, we're all programmed in a way to think that, I'll be happy when I get this. I'll be happy when I do this job, and that was one thing that came out of that weekend for me, was that I came out thinking so clearly. I was literally just like, fuck, I just want to do some good, where it kind of really, really brought up a lot of stuff for me, where it was kind of like, a lot of stuff of doing a clothing brand for me, was like, I've been very much, involved in trying to get things as good a quality as possible, but like I had experience with my mum and dad's business, but growing up I never wanted to own a clothing brand. Do you know what I mean? For me, it was just like a lot of it was tied up in looking for the validation of other people. Doing it to impress people, and trying to get people to like you. I'd been a bit of a bomb scare for about 10 years, travelled the world. I call it the decade of dopamine. Snowboarded.
It's a good book title, by the way.
Snowboarded, surfed, did Thai boxing. Obviously, and then obviously around that was just partying constantly. Do you know what I mean? And so, you know, just I think a lot of people just thought I was maybe a bit of a waster, you know, a bit of a Peter Pan. So I came back from that, and I really felt like, I think, you know, for me it was coming back home, and I was literally just like, I feel like I had something to prove, you know. And so that's where and then I do think that, you know, I'd never planned to go into my mum and dad's business, and I always thought, I think, you know, me going into my mum and dad's business, I always thought that was a failure, you know, and that I hadn't gone out and done my own thing. I hadn't conquered, you know, or anything like that. And that was for me, you know, coming in and setting up a clothing brand, like a lot of the energies that were behind that wasn't necessarily because I wanted to do it. It was because I wanted to impress people.
Yeah.
And that's something that, you know, I'm obviously in it now, and I do enjoy my job. Do you know what I mean? I enjoy it. I enjoy being creative. There's a lot of issues with, you know, not everybody's going to like what you do. You know, and that's where, you know, with Finnieston and stuff like that, I've had several kind of, you know, but like, which you're always going to get is just people being a knob on social media and stuff like that as well, which I took very much to heart. I've always been somebody that really likes people, wants people to like me. Yeah. Right? I'm just that, I'm a people-pleasing prick. Right? And that's where it's like, but that's not healthy, you know, and that's where, which leads into quite interesting, you know, I was like, after this kind of, you know, the man's weekend that I did, you know, I started to really do a lot of kind of delving into why I was the way I was, why I had these addictions, why I had these drinks, why I had the, like, obviously, like, these issues, and then started to read books, and then basically I've came to the realisation where I know 110% that I've got ADHD.
Right.
You know, where I've not watched a TikTok video and went, oh, I've got that. Do you know what I mean? Because for me, like, I've never really I had a really nice upbringing. You know, I had a good upbringing. I think, you know, I think my mum and dad did the best job that they knew how to do. Do you know what I mean? There's not really any huge amount of trauma in my life. So that's where you're kind of just like, why is it I am the way that I am? Why is it I have this issue of, you know, with alcohol and stuff like that? And basically, you know, my partner's always said, like, oh, you've got ADHD. And I just thought, well, so what then? Do you know what I mean? It's literally just like, I'm forgetful sometimes, or like that, or I struggle to pay attention. And I thought that's what ADHD was. But once you start to do a lot of reading into it, like, that's just a trait. But the reason that you have these traits is because if anybody that has ADHD, they basically can't control their own nervous system. They suffer from rejection sensitivity dysphoria, which is basically what happens is that basically you, as an example, where, you know, like, I was like one of a trending thing on Twitter one day where somebody tried to call my brand out and something like that, and ended up catching a bit of traction. Right. For me, that was like breakdown material. You know, if you have like that, where, you know, you a lot of, if your whole self-worth is on what other people think of you, right, and then that happens to you, it's fucking like a big deck of cards falling. And do you know what I mean? And so that's something that now that I know that I have it, and one of the other issues with ADHD as well is that, you know, your self-esteem, because if you've gone through your entire life not knowing that you have that, and you're forgetful all the time, or somebody gives you directions and you literally, as soon as you walk away, like, I didn't get a fucking bit of that. I've always struggled with football drills. You know what I mean? People telling me, like, you know, pass it there. And as soon as it's done, I'm literally just like, I don't know what to do. I just can't take in that information. You know, at school, basically, you know, I was just constantly hammered for not being able to pay attention, all this kind of stuff. And it's, you really realise is that, you know, there's self-esteem issues there as well, where your inner monologue's not good. There's not a lot of self-love there. And that basically, you know, you wake up most days and you're probably majority of those days giving yourself a hammering for something that you can't actually help.
This is a really surreal episode for me, because see, everything that you've said today, it's like exactly what I've been feeling in my whole life. And I first thought I was bipolar, because I was like, this can't be mental health. This can't be depression. It's all the time. It can't just be. Normally people get depression, it's like a couple of months there and here and there. This is my whole adult life. So I thought maybe I've got bipolar, and I went down and saw the Aaron Centre, which is just across the road from this building. And and they were like, no, we don't. When we assessed you, we didn't think there was anything that was bipolar there. They didn't mention anything ADHD or anything like that. And I was just trying to find an answer. And I was like, right, that's that box ticked. I've not got bipolar. And then I started thinking about ADHD, and I sat down with my aunt and uncle, and my uncle had been diagnosed with it like very late on in life. So he's gone through his whole life not knowing that he's had it. And a lot of the stuff he was saying I was resonating with, and I thought, this is...
Gabor Matte's book, Scattered Minds. That was the book for me that basically, like, I read the first 2 chapters and I just started grieving.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Where I was literally just like, fuck, right? Do you know what I mean? This is actually why my life has been the way that it has been, you know? And it was a huge wake-up moment for me, and a huge part of your healing process, you know what I mean? Because it's to have that kind of realisation. Somebody who has ADHD told me a really great analogy, which I loved. You know, like, you spend your entire life thinking maybe you're a bit of a broken horse, and you get to the age of 36 and you realise you're a zebra. Do you know what I mean? Where you kind of just go, right, okay, that's fine. Do you know what I mean? And that's where, for me, it's actually just like, now my... you can't cure ADHD, but like by, you know, mindfulness stuff, meditation, breath work, right? Your diet, looking after yourself, like, that's how, and just self-love. Yeah. If you can love yourself and do all that kind of stuff, then, do you know what I mean? Yeah. And just that's your path to really trying to work on that.
Yeah, and I think, see, when you start using those excuses for like relationships failing and stuff like that, it seems to be like that's an excuse. So that was, for me, I was always like, right, I've been ill, but there is actually a lot more to it. You know what I mean? I actually was. I haven't been diagnosed with ADHD or whatever, but I've obviously been diagnosed with depression.
Yeah.
And I've kind of been like, that's caused a lot of the problems in my life because I've had that and I've not been able to manage it, and I've not really understood how hard it's been as well. So maybe I need to go down the route and have a look and see if I've got ADHD. But did you go and get a diagnosis?
No, because I mean, at the end of the day, like, for me, the only way, I think, if you want to get a diagnosis, right, that's fine. The doctors will go, right, you have ADHD, and then it's like, it can take a very long time to get it, right? And I think if you really want to go through that, I think the thing that you get at the end of that is basically medication. They'll give you Ritalin.
Right.
And for me, I was actually just like, I'm not going at the age of 36. Do you know what I mean? I don't necessarily want to go down that route, you know, and that's where I don't need a diagnosis. Do you know what I mean? I'm aware of it. I'm still reading lots of books on it. You know, I want to understand myself more. You know, you're talking yourself about relationships there, about what happens if people have ADHD as well. They get very bored in relationships. Yeah. Right? And that's where it's literally just like, you kind of stop, you get bored. Right, I need dopamine. That's it. It's dopamine. Do you know what I mean? And that's where it's actually just like, where are you going to get dopamine from? It's like, a new relationship. Do you know what I mean? Something fresh, something that's going to keep you interested. Yeah. You know? That's an example of unhealthy dopamine addiction. Do you know what I mean? Alcohol, drugs, gambling, porn, all that kind of stuff. It's all dopamine. And that's where, for me, I'm so guilty of just looking at my phone all the time. I've logged out of my own business social media because it's not healthy for me. You know, I've got my own Instagram. I'm no longer logged into Finnieston's Instagram because it's, if I get pings at, 11 o'clock at night, it's literally just like, my brain's literally just like, oh, what's that? Maybe it's somebody saying something nice. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
It's exactly the same with this podcast. I was kind of using this as a personal one and to just promote the podcast. And I thought, no, separate it, have the podcast one just to release any information I need to, and have your own one for all that, because you fall down that rabbit hole with social media, don't you? Like, it really is toxic.
But it's, at the same time, it's just like, it can be used for good, and it's literally just like, for me, like, my Instagram's now filled up with positive stuff, stuff that I know that are going to fill me with positive things on a daily basis. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, I think you can really choose what it is that's getting projected at you on a daily basis. And that's what, I mean, if Facebook and Instagram are good for, they're just going to start to point you and give you stuff that you're interested in, because that's what they want,
Yeah.
your attention.
Yeah.
So, but it's not good for ADHD. You know, if you've, you know what I mean, blah, 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 sitting there like, you know, it's just always something just to look at. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and it's great that you're going down the route of not going and getting diagnosed and being on medication for it. You're testing yourself. You're doing research on it for yourself, and you're putting things into practice.
Yeah,
that is like half the battle for anybody.
Yeah,
to be able to do. So kudos.
It's just making things a habit, and that's the thing. Is it's literally just like it's because, and that's what's like, because what's interesting is once you start to do, you're digging into ADHD. It's normally genetic. Very much genetic, so it is. And then it's funny, like as soon as you realise you have it, you start to look at your mum and you're like, you've definitely fucking got it as well. You know, sitting there looking at your sister's red setter, that fucker's got it as well. Probably gave me it.
It's so true.
But then it was, you know, and then this is where it's just like, I don't want to go in there and start parading around my house saying, you know, this is what this is. I was like, Mum, I'm making you aware of this. And then here's the book I've read. If you want to read it. If not, I'm not going to say anything else about it again.
Yeah.
Do you know, where I don't want to walk into people's life and start fucking stuff up.
Yeah.
Do you know? But I think it can be healthy for people to know that they have got it.
Yeah.
And if you want to make that decision, because my mum's somebody that struggled with her mental health her whole life, you know, and sit there and go, because now my mum, I thought she's been doing breathwork. My mum does breathwork every morning.
Wow.
Right? Every morning, without fail, she gets up and does breathwork.
Yeah.
You know? I cannot recommend, like, it's fucking free.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's free, right? And it literally, honestly, sets you up every day.
Yeah.
Cold shower and that, right? If you're having, this is where it's just like, if you have anxiety or depression, like, start with that. Like, type in breathing breathwork on YouTube and it'll just pop up 10 minutes. 5-minute ones, like, where you can just sit and just do it. You can teach yourself it.
And I think these are the things that people don't want to do. You know what I mean? They don't want.
Why? This is what I'm trying to get at. Why do you think people don't want to do it?
I think we're just all skeptical. You know what I mean? Like, but I think we don't want to work on ourselves as well. I think we just think, we'll get better. I'll be fine.
Yeah,
that's exactly.
I've got a holiday coming up soon. I'll be fine after that.
That's exactly it. Or I've got this night out.
I can guarantee
whatever.
you. See the people that go on most holidays every year. They're the people that are not happy because they're constantly having to fill their life with something to look forward to. Do you know what I mean? And that's where it's literally just like, you know, the way that the world is at the moment. Like, if we want to really, really improve the way that the world is, it means everybody taking a bit of sovereignty for their own health. Because as soon as people start to do that, and I'm a prime example, right, where, you know, 2 years ago, I was that person, and now I'm literally not like that at all. And that's just because I've really went in and done some fucking pretty deep work, you know, which isn't pleasant.
Yeah.
It means being uncomfortable. That's the thing, right? And that's where it's actually just like people will do anything that they can to involve to put themselves in that uncomfortable situation. They'd rather stay in a level of semi-uncomfortableness rather than go down to there to get up to there. Yeah,
it's like people that are in that 9-to-5 job that they fucking hate. Every day is the same. And they just don't do anything about it. You know, it's like that kind of fear factor, isn't it?
It's the thing is, it's just, but that's where it's just like, it's not anybody's fault. It's nobody's fault. It's the environment that we're all brought up in. You know, like, it's like we all think that money, and this is where it's easy, it's very easy for me to sit and say this. I'm not a poor person, like, but it's generally think you can chase that money your entire life and it's not going to make you happy.
Yeah, there's people that won the lottery and not been happy.
No, I'm pretty sure most billionaires out there are not very happy people. You know,
but it's we're trained to think that money's going to solve everything because if you've got all the money in the world, then you're going to have no problems. Yeah, which is totally the wrong way to look at life. Yeah,
I think there's a huge disconnection in society at the moment where, like, if you think about it, like, you know, even like less than 100 years ago, like, you lived somewhere and then your auntie lived there, your friends lived there, you all lived there. We all lived such, like, very, very, lives where we're all separated from a lot of people. We live in a digital era as well, where people are always on their phones and all that kind of stuff as well, where I don't think a lot of people really are. And that's one thing that I realised since doing these kind of men's retreats and, meeting these other men and then meeting up with them again is like, sitting down in a room with a bunch of guys and talking about what's actually really wrong with you, like, and getting it out. Women are a lot better at it than guys. Men are bad at it. Do you know what I mean? We'll just talk about football and shite. Do you know what I mean? We never actually get into the actual stuff that's bothering you.
Yeah, because it's not macho and it's not like the manly thing to be like, mate, I'm struggling today. And the other guy's like, fuck up, you dick. You know what I mean? Like, it's just that mentality that, but to be honest, that being said, like with my friends, since I've fallen off the wagon many times, but this time my friends have been great with me and they've been all like wanting to listen to me and not be patronising.
This is not saying like all people are like that. I've got a great group of friends, you know what I mean? Like a really, really good group of friends that support me and all this kind of stuff as well, and that have been great through my journey and all that kind of stuff as well. But I think men in general are not very good at, talking about, or even people, they might listen, but then it takes a bigger person to actually sit down and say, guys, I'm not doing very good.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think, if you were to turn around and say to your friends, listen, guys, I'm not doing very good, can I talk about this? They'd say, yeah, sure, but that means putting yourself in a place of being vulnerable, which guys don't like doing.
Yeah.
So it's not an easy one.
I know, and if we were having this conversation before you went to the retreats and all that, it would be completely different.
Aye.
Because you wouldn't be as open about it.
No, not at all. Not at all. Do like, very much like, well, that's life, innit?
Yeah, I know.
That's life. Life's meant to be hard. Do you know what I mean? This is it. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is it. You know, you're in the struggle.
I know.
And I think one thing that I've learned, which has been very good for me, is that basically, like, you're in full control of your emotions, right? Bad stuff can happen, right? Stressful stuff can happen. It's you, and I think that's where doing a lot of the kind of mindfulness stuff is that it helps you to be able to kind of take, before you choose to get angry or sad or anxious or anything like that, like, it gives you that maybe a few seconds to go, what's the point? What is the point?
Yeah.
What's it gonna do? But the thing is, like, that's like a muscle. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't just come to you. Do you know what I mean? You need to really work on that. And it's like, you need to do a bit of work to get to that stage, and still have bad days. Do you know what I mean? I still have days where I don't feel great, but I just know how to pull myself out of them now. Yeah. And I know how to not let that, and basically understand this is something that's just going to pass through me and it'll be away tomorrow, or all that kind of stuff as well. So it's just, being in a lot more control of my emotions. And
it's quite funny because, like, the past couple of weeks I've been in a weird lull, and I've kind of not really, the things that therapy were teaching me I wasn't listening to anymore, and I was starting to get into that way, that old habit of thinking, and I've kind of been a bit lost in the last couple of weeks, and it's just been building, and today I was telling you I've had an actual shite morning, but for me I feel like there's still a lot more that I can be doing. And I think that retreat group for me, it would be something that would really help me with that, because I've still got a lot of stuff kicking about.
Yeah. Honestly, like, you'll come out a different person. For the better.
And where can people find that retreat? Like, is there a name?
Yeah, it's Mantra Men's Support.
Right.
Mantra Men's Support. Yeah, Mantra Men's Work. That's it. Yeah.
Right.
His business is called Mantra. So it isn't he? He was an athlete, a judo athlete for Great Britain, right? Who was a professional sports, so lived that in his whole life, and basically his whole identity was that, and it was quite a toxic environment that he was within, and obviously had kids and had lulled into a very bad bout of depression, and was in, seriously, had planned it all out. He was ready to kill himself pretty much, and then went to a breathwork session. He came out of that breathwork session, was just like, what the hell was that? He got out of his own head. I think that's what it does, is literally just like, it just gets you out of in here, you know. I can't speak highly enough about the guy that runs it. Do you know what I mean? Like, an amazing person. He's a really good friend of mine now. It was.
And did you find you used to be that person that was in your mind all the time?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Everything you do, critique everything.
Yeah. Aye. My brain was like you chuck a bag of 20p's in a washing machine, man. Just, it's just, my thought comes out, 20p comes out, that's a thought, but it's just this, you know, just a busy head. You know, my partner, she'll sit there and say, I can hear your brain. I can hear it. Yeah. Do you know, where I really struggle to switch off.
Aye. But I wonder if that's an ADHD thing, like, as well.
Probably, you know, it's we struggle to sit still. Do you know, it's all related. Yeah. So it is. So, but it's you know, it's as I say with ADHD, it's just very, you know, as an example, like not long ago, this is like, you know, I was sitting on the sofa through in the living room, and my partner goes, can you come through and help me rotate Grace's books? She's got all her books on a shelf there, and I go out and I take, you know, the books from the cupboard, and she wants me to take the books from there and change them around. And I started to laugh, and she was just like, why are you laughing? I was just like, because this would be the moment that I would usually feel really guilty for feeling dead inside for asking me to do this. Do you know what I mean? Where I'm like literally going, oh my God. And when you feel that guilt, right, you start to look for other things to blame on that. When you're actually sitting there in that situation going, you can't help that. If it doesn't interest you, the lights go off. Yeah. That's what happens. Do you know what I mean? If it interests you and you're interested, then you're fine. Yeah. Like, see, try to listen to my accountant. He fucking has a nightmare with me. It's like, she just like, the lights are on but no one's home.
Yeah,
you know, where
I know. That's where you just hire somebody to deal with it, all that, and you're just like, right, I'm not touching that.
I always just make sure somebody else is in the room. Do you know what I mean? Did you get all that? Please make sure you did. Is it good or bad? Just tell me, like, hey, that's bad. That's normal then. So yeah.
Yeah, I was aware ahead of today that you'd been on quite a lot of podcasts, and I just wanted today to be completely different, because you've been on loads of podcasts to tell your story of how you got started in the business, and you know, all the plans and what inspired you and all that, and that was all great, but I wanted to get down to the real nitty gritty today. And I really appreciate that. There's a few questions that I normally ask at the start, but we just went straight into it, so I'm going to ask them now. But with you being on a few podcasts, do you listen to podcasts? Is there any in particular?
I think recently I've just, due to like an interest in mental health and kind of like, you know, plant medicines and all that kind of stuff, I'll listen to some of the Joe Rogan stuff. Andrew Huberman as well. Yep. You know, like the kind of biochemist from Harvard and stuff like that.
He's been on a few times, hasn't he?
Yeah. Has he not been on Joe Rogan? Yeah. I've started to listen to a lot of that stuff, but like for me now, I've been doing a lot of, I've got Audible. So I listen to a lot of, what I've tend to do is I'll read my book at night, but if I'm out and about in the car, I'll kind of just basically listen to some books. Yeah. So, and do that, so.
Brilliant. And do you have any pop culture interests?
Define pop culture.
So pop culture is kind of like what's popular in time. Or it can be like movies or pop culture. My interests are all kind of pop culture related with like TV shows, gaming, what people are into basically. But you can have a pop culture interest where you like a certain era music or whatever like that. I probably not describe pop culture very well, because as anybody that listens to this podcast will know, it's a front for the podcast. I was just trying to think like all, like if you think
I love
wrestling,
films, right? Okay. I love movies. Brilliant. And I would say, like, you know, that's like my thing. I love to just sit and watch a film. I don't need to speak to anyone. You know what I mean? It's just like that time. Yeah. So like I'll Yeah, I'm big into my movies, so I am. So
and you can switch off and just completely be absorbed in that world.
Yeah. I love all different kinds of films. I love watching films that I've watched before as well. There's that comforting thing that you kind of what's going to happen. Do you know, all that kind of stuff? So, but yeah, no.
And you're a football person as well.
Yeah.
What? Who do you support?
Rangers,
okay.
Unfortunately.
So you're just off a fresh defeat at the weekend, Old Firm, which touchy subject. How another thing about mental health and all of the stuff that we've been talking about, loss. Like, I'm a Man United fan, right? And obviously, it's more aware that we've melted down since Sir Alex Ferguson has gone.
You're getting better.
We're getting there, but very, very slowly. But for me, I struggle with losing because obviously Man United have been a world-class team at one point, and now they're not even close to that. It puts me in such a weird mood, and I don't know if that's just a football fan or if it's a mental health thing, that it would always make me want to not go into work on the Monday or not go into school on the Monday because we'd got beat at the weekend. Is that due to people giving you shit for it, or...? I don't know. I think it's just the mentality of wanting to win. You know what I mean? It's like when you're a fan, you don't want to lose, you don't want to draw, you want to win. But I've always found that it's just hung around a little bit longer than some people would be like. By the Monday, they were like, I don't care. Like, I'm over it now. We've got a game at the weekend. Whereas I was always just like, I just wondered if there was anything like that with you, or can you deal with loss pretty well? I'm pretty good at it. I must admit, really. You know, like it's I'm actually like, once it's done, I think I'm okay with that. I'm not too bad. It must just be me. I'm trying to think why that might be. Why you take that more than other people, you know, but because it's like I was actually part of the reason that we didn't win. You know what I mean? Why do you think that you're part of the reason? What? I wake up sometimes and I feel like my energy's off, and I'm like, right, we're playing Southampton at 3:00. We're going to get fucking beat, and then we get beat. You know what I mean? I really should be a betting man, shouldn't I? But or it just shows you how bad Man United are falling off. But yeah, just. I can kind of have this weird feeling when I feel like shit. It's like I'm sending them telepathic messages to the players. Are you looking for stuff to feel shite about? Probably, aye. Because that's another thing about mental health, is some people like to be ill. You know what I mean? And some people like the fact that they're down, and I'm definitely not one of those. But that's part and parcel of it. I think a lot of people like to feel, I'm not well today, or like got that kind of vibe. I would do anything to not have mental health problems, which is what I'm trying to fix. But you're on the right path. You're aware of it. Aye, you know? And so that's self-awareness. Is the massive part, and I feel like that I'm definitely going to be looking up the group, because I feel that's the stage I'm at, where I've done so much, I've come so far. I need that little bit more to come. And something like that I feel would open up. So they do obviously the big retreats, but then they also do day sessions sometimes in Glasgow. Right. Like we can turn up and get like a miniature version of a day. Oh, okay. Also sometimes on once a month, I think, at the wee retreat in Cathcart, they do stuff as well. Brilliant. Where it's just very similar stuff, but it's super powerful. Yeah. Really, really powerful. And where can the people find you for following you online? I know that you don't want to actually do the social media, but Finnieston Clothing. Yeah. So so Finnieston Clothing. That's where you can find the Instagram, which I've got nothing to do with. and the stores obviously on Byres Road as well. So if you like your clobber, that is a store for you. Honestly, like the clothes are fantastic, and the story behind it, and all the little details it goes into, which I know the stuff we haven't really talked about today, but there are other podcasts that you've been on where you've explained those stories. Quality, sustainability is a big thing for me. You know, it always has been, where, you know, especially having a daughter, where literally just want to
make something that, you know, in 16 years' time she's proud of. You've not trashed the place, you know, where... and unfortunately, I think if you're running a clothing brand, you're literally just like, the bigger you are, the worse you become, you know. Then that's where I'm having a struggle at the moment, because at this moment in time I make very good quality clothing, and I try my best to get it at a good price for people, you know, and that's where I don't wholesale the brand to other people, because I can't afford to. There's no point, there's no margin in it. So where it's trying to find that sweet spot of making money, but then also trying to make money, not really making a lot of money, but just trying to, where you can grow a business, but at the same time, you know, make a good product at a good quality price, you know. And that's where, you know, like more than half my range this winter will be made in Scotland. So and try and get stuff made locally, try and use natural materials, you know. I'm working on a project at the moment which was supposed to happen this year, but it's definitely not now, is where my grandpa's got a farm in Eaglesham.
About this,
and we've sheared his sheep, and we're going to put his wool into some insulation and jackets.
Wow.
So, and do that, which has never been done before, and then get the jackets made in Scotland with like organic cotton outers, all that kind of stuff. Like, so it's literally just like, I can't fucking try any harder. Do you know? I've sheared my own fucking grandpa's sheep. Do you know what I mean? But the project's taken a bit longer than I thought, and it's something that I really want to get right. So, but we will, and that's something for me as well, you know, doing that video through social media and stuff like that, is that I do want Finnieston to be a brand that is an ambassador for mental health, you know, because fashion is a notoriously unvulnerable industry, you know, where people, it's not cool to even look like you're having a good time. Do you know what I mean? Where I'm wanting to try and be the antithesis of that, and make good quality clothing, and just keep talking about, and that's where I always come on my social media and just tell people and be honest, and tell them what's going on. So I've just been honest. I know. So in doing that, and I think people appreciate that. It's like giving your social media CPR. See, as soon as you do something like that and come out and say that, it just comes to life, you know, where people want something that's real. Yeah, and it's one of those things that some people might fabricate, but I could just tell in that video how genuine it was. You know what I mean? Like, and that's where we're used to seeing bullshit. So like, when we recognise real pain, we see it. And it was a very brave thing to do. So thank you. And you're doing a brave thing as well, mate. You know, doing this and coming in, and you know, you've spoke about your problems today as well, and that takes balls. Yeah, and it's one of those things that so many of the things that we've talked about today has resonated. So it's, I think we're quite similar. Therapy for us both. I know it is. but with that being said, thank you so much for taking the time to come in and speak to me. I really appreciate it. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I purposely have been staying away from the store because I know I would just end up racking up even more debt, just buying every shirt in every colour and every t-shirt, but I'm going to come in and see the store and spend some money. So, I appreciate that, Callum. Thank you. Thank you again for coming on. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next Tuesday.